Now I'd like to show you how to make some piping to go around your cushion front. First of all, you need to cut some bias strips that are sufficient to go all the way around, plus a bit extra to allow for joining. So our cushion is 16 inches square, so we will need 64 inches plus a bit extra. So I've cut about 70 inches of bias strips here. To place two ends together, two diagonally cut ends together, and think that is the way you want it to be when it's finished. So in order to achieve that, we need to take one piece and flip it over onto the other, like so. Okay, we're going to put a pin in there so I don't forget when I get to the sewing machine which parts I'm sewing. And then the same again with this piece. I'm going to lay them together as I would want it to be when it's finished. Flip it over. And when you flip one on top of the other, don't line the edges up completely, because when you sew them, you will, and open it out again, it will be slightly off. What you need to do is to move it over a little bit, so where you start sewing, the two edges are together. And where you leave it, once you finish the sewing, the two edges are also together. If you do that, when you open it out, you'll have a nice straight bias strip. So I'll put another pin in there. So now we're going to join our bias strips together. Again, select a straight stitch about 2.5mm in length. And I find the easiest way is to line up the edges of the sewing machine foot with the raw edges of your work. Place the needle where the two fabrics cross and stitch. Now to press your seams open before making your binding. So first of all, finger press it open on the iron, a bit of steam. And there you are, pressed open, nice and smooth and almost invisible on the right side. It's better to have your cord, if you can, on a roll or wound into a ball so you can put it on the floor while you're making your piping. So I'm going to do that now. I'll take the end of my piping and fold my bias cut strips over it, so the raw edges meet. In some quilting books, when they're telling you about piping, they say to put a zipper foot on at this stage. I prefer not to do that, because I find that if you get the stitching too close to the piping, or very close to the piping at this stage, when it comes to putting the cushion together, you might find you can see the stitch, because when you're sewing all the layers together you might not get in so close. So what I like to do, if this is possible on your machine, I can do it on this one, is to move my needle over 2 notches to the left. Okay, and it lets me move in close to the binding without being too close. So now selecting a standard medium length stitch on your sewing machine, about 2.5mm. Put the presser foot down so it's up nice and snug towards the cord. And then making sure you feed the cord through and keep the edges together. Just stitch. And there we are. Your piping. You might need to stretch it out a little bit afterwards. Okay, before I apply my piping to my cushion, I'm going to cut off half of the seam allowance so I can get the piping nice and close to the edge of the cushion. So just with scissors, doesn't have to be that accurate because it's all going to be taken up in the seam allowance. Just make sure you don't cut into the stitching. There we are, trimmed. And because it's very difficult to put bias binding around sharp corners, before I apply it, I'm going to round off my corners. So I find the easiest way to do this is to use the lid off a standard tin of pins. Just place it in the corner, draw around it with some tailor's chalk. There we are, nicely rounded off, just ready for the binding. Okay, I've pinned these two halves together, leaving about 1/4 of an inch between them. Because we've got an opening at the top and bottom edges, I'm going to start on one side of this cushion. I would normally, if it was a flat cushion top, I'd normally start at the bottom, but we'll start on one side. Okay, so as you apply the binding, it is applied with the raw edges together. So when you turn the cushion inside out, the binding will be on the outside. So I'm just going to pin this, leaving about 2 inches end. Okay, just pin this all the way around. So now I've got my piping pinned all the way around, I'm going to join it in an almost invisible join. So what we need to do is take a seam ripper and just open up the seam to expose the cord. Now you need to rip it back far enough to allow you to put the two ends of the fabric right sides together. Maybe a little bit more. It doesn't matter if you go a bit too far, because you're going to be going over it when you sew the binding onto the cushion front anyway, so probably better. It's easier to manipulate if you open it too far. Okay, and the same on this side. So I'm going to put those two pieces together back to back, make sure they're square. Put a pin in there. I know we need to stitch this together. So take the pin out, a few stitches. I've got a few stitches in reverse would go amiss here. You don't want it all coming apart when you're pinning it on. Okay, now I'm going to trim my seam, so there's about 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Trim that off. And press it open. Okay, so I'm going to cross the cords together, and I want them overlapping by about 1 inch. So I'll cut this one about here, and this one about here. I'm just going to pull out one strand of each cord and cut it off. And then just either knit them together if you can, or just lie the two side by side and fold your fabric over and pin it in place. To sew the binding on, I'm going to move my needle, which is already 2 notches to the left. I'm going to move it just 1 more notch, so it won't be as close in as if I was using the zipper foot, but a little closer. Okay, and there we go, and we're on a medium straight stitch, 2.5 millimeters. If, when you put your pins in, you have the point facing in the opposite direction that you're going to be sewing, it's much easier to be taking them out all the way around. Okay, because if they were facing the other way, I'd constantly have my hands in the way of the needle, and it's a bit dangerous as well as inconvenient. And when you get to the corners, you may have to push your binding out of the way so it doesn't get caught under the presser. Try and follow the line of stitching that you did when you made your piping to start with. Makes it a lot easier. Now I've come to the end of sewing my piping on, I'm just going to do a few reverse stitches to secure it and cut off.